Welcome back to Launch Codes Football. My name is Chelsea.
And I'm Chris.
And welcome to this week's episode. How we doing, Chris?
We are chilling today. I hope y'all get to watch the video because Chelsea just did a whole whip around. That's why we're a little bit different today. We wanted to just be like, we got to open up with some pizzazz today.
We were feeling spunky.
That's right. So I'm doing good, though. Some big news, finally. It feels like we've had like no NFL news for like a minute. So
we're in the desert of the NFL season right now.
I know, but it's coming up soon. It's like, what, in 10 Sundays? They said NFL Red Zone starts up. So I'm like, it's coming.
Yay, get to watch the Panthers be bad and the Colts be good. Let's go.
I mean, you may be right. You may be wrong. I don't know. Anyways.
Thought you were going to make a Jaguars joke there for a second.
At least we're not the Jaguars. Anyways, let's get into it today. We got a big topic. So, Baker Mayfield traded to Carolina for a 5th-round pick in 2024. And that's like it. I mean, the Browns have to agreed to pay $10.5 million of his remaining salary, and the Panthers will pay $5 million. That is it.
Good talk.
I'm like, did the Browns just kind of get fleeced on this deal?
100%.
You think so?
Yes.
Why do you think that?
I think what makes this trade a good trade or a bad trade is not necessarily that it's Baker Mayfield. It's more about what the opposing team gave up. And the fact that the Panthers gave up a draft pick, not only not in this year's draft, but in next year's. And it's a conditional 5th-round pick. I mean, yeah, you can't really ask for more than that as a Panthers fan. That's an excellent trade. I think most any team with quarterback issues would go out of their way to trade a conditional 5th-round pick for a guy who started in the league for multiple years. So, yeah, I think they got great value. He's definitely better than Sam Darnold. And as for Matt Corral, we don't know yet, but one would assume, at least to begin with, that he would be better as well. Naturally, Ben McAdoo, the new offensive coordinator for the Panthers, who is not that experienced with pre-game and post-game press conferences and media days and stuff like that, unintentionally came out today and said that Sam Darnold was the starting quarterback for the Panthers, and then a minute later realized he was not supposed to say that because the season hasn't started. So good job, Ben. But yeah, I think that this is a great trade for the Panthers. Great value. I mean, you're getting a guy who's young. He still has upside. So it's better than everything else that you have. So you have that going for you. As for the Browns, I mean, they're probably screwed, to be honest. I mean, they were going to have to trade him anyways because they totally soiled their relationship with him. But it's looking more and more likely that Deshaun Watson is going to get suspended for this season, regardless of the course of action that his court cases and his lawsuits take. The NFL kind of tends to take things that are not necessarily in their jurisdiction, like legal things, and kind of make their own decisions on it. We've seen it with multiple players in the past. It wouldn't surprise me even if Deshaun Watson was declared not guilty, that he still got suspended by the NFL for the whole year, because that's just a very NFL thing of them to do. So yeah, I think that the Browns are screwed, honestly. If they had not ruined their relationship with Baker Mayfield, they probably could have kept him and started him when Deshaun gets suspended, most likely. But since they didn't, not only did they ship off a starter, they also had to pay some of his salary, and they barely got anything back for him. Honestly, I think they're fortunate they got back what they did, because his trade value was absolutely sunk after the Browns came out and said they didn't want him, because people weren't going to pay out the wazoo for him when they knew that the Browns, didn't even want them there to begin with. So yeah, I think the Browns are in deep trouble, in my opinion. Like I said, suspect Deshaun gets suspended. Baker's out the door. That means their starting quarterback would be Jacoby Brissett, which absolutely no hate to Jacoby Brissett. He started for the Colts for a year, was on there. Great team guy, best QB sneaker at the goal line in the league, in my opinion. But let's be honest, the dude's not a starter in the league. And if he is controlling and commanding their offense all year, would not surprise me if they ended up making a beginning of the year or a mid-season trade for Jimmy Garoppolo. Not that he's that much better, but he's better than Brissett, and they just need a guy who can win, which, you know, Garoppolo has proven to some extent that he can do that. So I think it's just a matter of time trying to see how they untangle their quarterback situation. But as for the Panthers, yeah, that's a win. I mean, it's better than everything else you have, and maybe him being there will boot your head coach Rule out the door, because it seems like he's already on his way out. The year hasn't even started. So yeah, like I said, I think it's a great trade for the Panthers, and a stupid and boneheaded trade for the Browns, which, to be honest, what's new with the Browns? They've kind of always been that way. So
I think, yeah, I mean, this feels like a Browns thing. Like they've taken what seems like such a good situation. What is it? A few years ago. And now we've just got them seeming to struggle now. I mean, here's the problem. Baker Mayfield, whether you like it or not, has been your most consistent and best quarterback you've had in at least 20 years.
yeah.
Who else has led you to the playoffs? Who? Literally none of them. The closest one was
recently.
The closest one was Derek Anderson. He led them to like a 10-win season, and they didn't make it. So I think that this is kind of crazy to me. I know what they want. Here's what Cleveland is hoping for. I think they know deep down Deshaun will get suspended. I think we all know there will be some type of suspension. I think what they're banking on is at most an 8-game suspension, because they think if he gets suspended 8 games this year, he can still come back and make a huge impact. They can maybe split the season or whatever, win a few games, and then he comes back and suddenly they feel like they're a Super Bowl champion. Problem is, I know Deshaun Watson's very talented, but you're throwing him in the middle of a season with a brand new offense, and he hasn't played a game of football in a long time, and he's going to learn all of this stuff compared to a bunch of people that he's going against that have already been playing for pretty much half a season at that point. He's going to be behind. I know great players make it work. I know they can, but I think that's going to be something that they aren't really ready for. Now, maybe they're hoping
he's an exception to the rule, considering he hasn't played.
Yeah. And so I'm like, look, there's that problem. There's also the problem with the fact that, I mean, we don't know how long his suspension is going to be. That's like the guess. That's the hope, is 8 games for them. They are really putting themselves in a rough position right now. Like right now, they have Jacoby Brissett at quarterback, who's not terrible, but he's not going to get them to where they want to be. They want to be a Super Bowl team right now. And this may be their 1 year left, because to be honest, a Super Bowl window opens and closes quickly. 1 year you're like, oh, we're going to make it next year. We'll be back here next year, or we're going to get there. Maybe Super Bowl teams, how many of them have lost and then been like, oh, we can make it the next year? How many of them don't? It's a lot. And so I really think that Cleveland's Super Bowl window, they know it's tight, and they're really trying to cut this close. If it pays off, great. But I think the NFL is going to be hard on this Deshaun Watson thing. I think 8 games will be nice for them. They'll be lucky to get an 8-game suspension for him. And I think they're really putting all their eggs on this trade. And truth is, right now, it's not looking great. Baker Mayfield, in my opinion, has done himself a favor. He has left the organization. He said that, you know what, I enjoyed my time in Cleveland overall. He's enjoyed his 4 years, but it's time to move on. And so I get it. And this trade shows that they weren't really trying to trade for value's sake. They were just trying to get rid of him.
Which is sad.
Mm-hmm. I mean, they want to free up some cap and all of that. I get it, but they didn't really free up that much cap. It's because they're paying $10.5 million for a guy that's not playing for their team. So I don't know. I think that Deshaun, if he comes in and is great, this will be fine. But the likelihood of that, it's going to be tough. It's going to be really difficult. And Cleveland right now is without a quarterback, and it's July. They waited too long for this. The Panthers, while, you could argue, well, they waited a long time for this too. I would argue their thoughts are, well, here's what they think. And I don't really agree with this. They're like, we have Sam Darnold. We already know he's going to be they already planned on him to start, I think, which, I mean, I don't think is a good thing. And obviously if they did, they wouldn't have made this trade. But they have Matt Corral to back him up. So even if they did, trot out there with Sam Darnold, they're like, well, we have a backup plan. Now they have 2 backup plans, and I do think, though, Baker will be the starter. I think day one, he's the starter.
If he's not, that's just dumb.
He must have played real bad in practice if he's not the starter. And I think Baker 1000% wants to be the starter because they play Cleveland game 1.
Game 1. Oh, you want to talk about a redemption arc beginning right at the beginning of the season? You got to love that as a Panthers fan, right?
I hope so. I mean,
go get a guy and he starts out the season on a tear against his former team that insulted him out of Cleveland.
Mm-hmm. Shows up to the front office like, you don't have a quarterback, but I'm great. And I'm not, to be honest, I wasn't like so excited that we got Baker because I don't know if he's going to get us to where I don't think he's going to get the Panthers to a Super Bowl level. I don't know. He could, I guess. I mean, we've had Rex Grossman make a Super Bowl. So, I mean, anything can happen.
By the way.
Yeah, there you go. And so, I mean, it can happen, but I don't think he's the guy that's going to get you to that level.
But hey, he gets you closer than Sam Darnold.
I agree.
And that's what counts.
And it's funny. You see a lot of fans upset, like, well, now we're definitely not getting a top 5 pick for next year's QB draft. I just want to talk about, we have currently 2 of the top 5 picks of 2018. And one of them is really bad. So all of those who say we need the top 5 or they're out of the top 5 now, I'm like, Mahomes wasn't picked top 5. Josh Allen wasn't picked top 5. Tom Brady was 6th round. Aaron Rodgers was 24. When are we going to get to the point where we just recognize that just because somebody's a top 5 pick doesn't mean they're going to be great? Like, I'm not saying obviously it's because they're showing, they're top 5 because they're showing they can play well. But I think there's just too many exceptions to the rule to be like, oh, well, now you're screwed out of a quarterback, definitely, because you don't have a top 5 pick. I don't believe that.
And there's more than 2 guys that are going to be in the draft this year in the first round. I mean, the class that's coming out this year is considerably more talented across the board than the one that came out last year. So,
yeah, exactly.
I mean, there's going to be more than Stroud and like CJ Stroud and Bryce Young. Like, there's going to be more options than that. Now, obviously, those two guys are the top tier options you shoot for, but to act like there are no other options is just not the case.
Mm-hmm. So, to all those that are saying we only need, or people, you're out of the top 5, you're not getting a good QB. It's just false. It just is.
And I feel like people forget just because you get Baker Mayfield doesn't mean you will automatically be good.
Also true.
Like, just because he's better than Sam Darnold doesn't mean he makes the offense better. Doesn't mean that Christian McCaffrey stays healthy. Doesn't mean that the offensive line shows up. I mean, doesn't mean that you finally find a consistent tight end 1 this year. So, I mean, there's a lot of other factors that contribute into winning outside of the fact that you have Baker Mayfield now. So if you want to not have a top 5 pick, it's going to come down to more than that. I mean, it's going to come down to rules coaching. It's going to come down to Ben McAdoo as the offensive coordinator, which, if I'm being honest, neither of those guys really inspire much confidence. And I'm not even a Panthers fan first. So can't imagine how you feel, Chris. But to say it's all on Baker Mayfield to make or break a top 5 pick is just not the case, because there's just so many other things that play into it outside of a quarterback play.
And rip to the Seahawks, by the way.
Yeah.
I mean, okay, I do kind of wonder, though, do you think they were just rumors that they were talking now? Because, I mean, do you really think the Seahawks couldn't cough up a 5th rounder in 2 years and $5 million? I
feel like it wasn't rumors because their starting quarterback right now is Drew Lock. who also does not inspire much confidence from many people. So I feel like it wasn't rumors, but I don't know. Maybe their internal office has more faith in Drew Lock than the general NFL fan base does. Can't tell you. We'll have to see.
I
Hey,
mean,
maybe they'll do a midseason trade for Jimmy. He just goes up the coast, goes to Seattle. Not that, 49ers would willingly trade to someone in their division, but,
look here. Right now, it's a battle between Drew Lock and Geno Smith, a competitive
yikes.
quarterback battle in Seattle for that.
Oh, that's a good one.
I'm going to be
Legendary.
honest. I hope one of them turns out an all-star. I think that'd just be great.
Geno Smith. The
Oh
last guy you suspect.
Look, I would love it. I'm just saying that'd be amazing. He ends up doing better than Russ in Denver. That would be just like, what a world we would live in.
In other news, though, AFC West is going to be must-watch football this year. Even if you're not a fan of the team in the AFC West, that entire division is stacked. Every single divisional game is going to be a must-watch.
True.
It's going to be awesome.
But also, I think the AFC just in general is a big bloodbath, isn't it?
I mean, that's true. But specifically the AFC West, you got Russell Wilson, Patrick Mahomes, Derek Carr, Justin Herbert. You now have one of the top wide receivers. You have crazy pass rushers. You have all these dudes. You have tight ends that are all stars. You have offensive lines that are great. You have defenses that perform every week. It's just going to be must watch football. I don't even care if I'm a fan of those teams or not. It's just going to be phenomenal. I'm so excited.
All the Chargers had to do was not call timeout, and they would have been in the playoffs this year.
Yep.
All they had to do.
I'd say that's a little worse than just having to beat the Jaguars, but that's just my opinion.
Look, fair, because the Jaguars always just for some reason wake up for the Colts. But
yes, we're the only team, Chris. The only team.
Literally, I'm like, I don't understand it. But no, if you're the Chargers player, coaches, whatever, you remember that. And I'm just like, man, why'd you call the timeout? The worst part is they called that timeout and the play, like, it was worse. They still got like 7 yards off the play. So I'm like, I don't understand.
At least I'm not a Chargers fan.
Exactly. Look, the Chargers, somehow they find a way. But it's okay. Just like Dallas, too. Dallas also finds a way somehow.
I'll lose, but
got him. Yeah, I don't know. This will be a very interesting season, I think. And for Baker, I think this will be huge. If he wants to make real money, he's going to have to put up some really good games, or at least, clean games, not messy, broken, what the heck was that games. He needs to play well.
This is his make or break year. Like, if he sucks it up this year, he's a perennial backup for the rest of his career.
I also think that this is the year Rule he has to show improvement. I think
he's out the door already. That's my opinion, though.
I think if he's out the door already, he would have been fired.
Yeah, but you just hear the talk. It's like no one even likes him, which is sad. I'm sure he's a nice person.
The owner likes him.
I'd be very surprised if he survived this year.
Look, the owner gave him a 7-year deal. This man
foolishly
to a guy. Yeah, you're right. I agree. Like, why do you give a 7-year deal to a person literally that has never been a head coach in the NFL? I'll never know. But what my thing is, I really think Tepper's putting a lot of pressure on Rule to get things done this year.
Good.
One thing about Tepper you have to know, and we've seen, he has a very short leash with quarterbacks. Look at it since he's been there. And he's gone through Cam Newton, Kyle Allen for like a few games.
PJ Walker, the GOAT.
PJ Walker. But really the starters, the biggest few starters they've had since the rebuild that they've gone through are Teddy Bridgewater and now Sam Darnold. Like,
he has a low tolerance.
And Teddy Bridgewater was not even terrible. Like,
it wasn't great.
No, but he was consistent. He was consistent.
Average.
True. But I'm just saying, it shows he has a very short leash at quarterback right now. And I think Baker Mayfield's on that same leash right now. I think
As he should be.
1,000% he is. Yeah. I don't think he should be treated, special because he was a top 5 picker who's a number 1 pick in 2018. I don't think that matters. So now I really think this is the year Rule has to get it right. Look, he's drafted and signed the offensive lineman. He's got skill players to make things work. They've
He has
got
a really good young defense, probably top 10 this year if they play up to their potential.
Exactly. They have all the pieces to make this work. And if they cannot coach a good team, and now they have a guy who, in my opinion, Baker Mayfield, whether you like him or not, I think that he is a starting quarterback. Like I think, and I think that's true. And I don't think many people disagree with that. Does that mean he's elite? No, I don't think that. I'm just saying I think he starts, So really this year, this has to be a year of some type of improvement. I'm not saying they have to go to be a Super Bowl team. I don't think it's that. But I also think a lot of this is going to ride on McCaffrey's health too. Because let's be honest, he's just been glass his past few years. And it's not really his fault. We know. I mean, he's tried to stay healthy. He's done all these things, but he has been injured so much. And it's like, and these are never just like short injuries where he misses a game or two. It's been big, long, drawn out injuries. And so I really think a lot of the team will depend on him too. Should you have to rely all on your running back? No. But I think if McCaffrey does not have a very good year this year, as far as staying healthy, I don't know if the Panthers will keep him. I know they signed him to a contract, but they might be looking to get rid of him, or I don't know. Running
Someone
backs
would
have a
pay
short
big
shelf
bucks for
life.
him.
They
I
would.
mean, a couple of years ago, he was a top 3 running back. So someone would shell out money for him, and someone would package a good deal for him. It's just, you hate to see it. Like his first year, he was phenomenal. Didn't get injured at all. And then boom, injury. Man, I just hope he stays healthy.
Yeah. And so I
He's
think
my favorite Panthers player, as I'm sure is true for many Panthers fans.
as I'm sure is true for just many people.
That's true.
So I don't know. I think that's going to be a lot of it, and I guess we're going to see what happens. But I think this is going to be a very interesting season in Carolina. I mean, overall, this season just has a lot. I think it's been building up to. I mean, I know every season does, but I'm very interested. There's a lot of, I feel like as we go along in NFL history, as we've kept going, NFL history has become a lot more like NBA free agency, or NFL free agency has become more like NBA free agency as time has gone on. I mean, you just see players, super teams, although I don't think they work as well in the NFL, to be honest.
Not to the same extent, but
and recently, even in the NBA, they haven't been working out that well either. So, which I think is funny. But players demanding trades, or looking to be free agents, going where they want. I'm like, it does make for a more entertaining free agency for people like us to talk about.
As a Panthers fan, hey, you don't even have to make the playoffs. Have a winning record. If you take anything from this year, have a winning record. And even if you miss the playoffs, that is improvement, because you didn't make the playoffs last year. So if you can have a winning record versus last year not having a winning record, that's improvement, even if you don't make the playoffs. Now, the goal with a winning record, obviously, is to make the playoffs, and the NFC is weak. So theoretically, if you have a winning record, you should be making the playoffs, just because there's just not that many top tier teams in there right now. But at minimum, as a Panthers fan, you have to want to see a winning record, even if it's like 9-8. Like, at least it's over 500.
True. Yeah. I just want to be over 500. Is that too much to ask? Probably. But yeah. So also kind of as a side topic, we just, while there's not a ton of news outside of that, obviously that being the big news today, wanted to kind of discuss a little bit of like theoretical, or just like opinion based things. So Chelsea, I don't know if you see what we got here. But just got a little bit of a question for you and for those listening at home or wherever you're at. So, who is the worst Super Bowl MVP in the last 10 years? Now, this is like of no
I
offense to
mean,
people. I mean, being Super Bowl MVP is a really big deal, but there's definitely some that are better than others, in my opinion. It just is
right.
what it is. So in the past 10 years, we're going back from, I guess, all the way back to 2012. Which one's the worst one to you?
I mean, strictly stats wise, just looking at stats, not acknowledging surrounding context, I will say that one of the weaker stat lines is probably Eli Manning's second Super Bowl win, where he only had
Ooh.
one touchdown. Now I'm saying that's just stats. That's not context. That's not what he did outside of stats. That's just stats. I'm just saying, when you think of a Super Bowl MVP, you usually think of someone who has more than one touchdown, especially as a quarterback. Now, I recognize the way that the game was played, etc. But even still, like, it's just not eye popping. Like, that's what you expect when you expect a Super Bowl MVP. You expect eye popping numbers. And the fact that he didn't have that, strictly stats wise, I would say. Now, that's disregarding context. Obviously, that was a great Super Bowl. But that's what I'm going to be like. That's what I'm going to say.
Okay, fair enough. I mean, yeah, no, he didn't have the greatest game. I know at the end of that 2012 game, he made the big play to Mario Manningham. And so that was a big part of it. He led the clutch drive. And so I
Right.
think there's
Like I
some
said,
fairness to that. But yeah.
that take was strictly stats based.
Yeah, no, that's fair. If you want me to be real, here's my worst Super Bowl MVP of the past 10 years. Julian Edelman in against the Rams in
Oh man, you're
2018.
gonna have some Patriots fans on your back.
Look, I get it. I'm not saying that he was bad, and I'm not saying I also understand he was like the only offense in that whole Super Bowl. And to be honest, this, in my opinion, this is one of those awards that it wasn't appropriate for this game because nobody was good on offense in this game. Literally
That's true.
nobody. It was
Except
a
Edelman,
defensive
apparently.
battle. And so, exactly. I mean, he had 9 catches for over 100 yards. And I'm not, I apologize. 10 catches for 141 yards, which I mean, he was good. Don't get me wrong. He was. But like also, they barely scored any points. Really, this is the type of Super Bowl that needs to go to a defensive player or the team as a defense, like the defense as a team, because it doesn't seem appropriate that they scored so few points, but then the offensive player gets the Super Bowl MVP. And so to be honest, I get it. I know he played the best offense for the Patriots in that whole game. And to be honest, this is just a very low and sad Super Bowl for the Rams. It was 13-3, guys. And really, it was less than that until the very end. So, look, I'm not saying that. Look, all I mean to say is I get why they gave it to him because they have to give it to a specific player. I get that. But I don't like it. I just kind of feel like between all of the
You
other
don't like it.
No, I just think that between all the other ones, you had Cooper Cup last year. You've got Tom Brady like every time he makes it. You've got, Von Miller with his excellent play in Super Bowl 50. You've got Nick Foles, a guy who was like who even knew Nick Foles beforehand? I know NFL fans, but now he's like a household name. He showed up in that Super Bowl to play. You had Patrick Mahomes winning for the Chiefs. I mean, I know that's a lot of quarterbacks, and that's sadly it tends to be how it goes. But like, if you really compare Edelman's performance to guys like that, I mean, do you really think like he was a better Super Bowl MVP than some of those? Like, do you think Julian Edelman's performance was better than Von Miller's performance? Like,
To be fair, he didn't have a touchdown either. So again, if you're strictly
mm-hmm.
looking at stats.
Exactly. Heck, like
But you could
basically,
argue the other way. It's like he carried the offense because no one else did anything. So, I mean, there's always two arguments to it, of course. That's just how it is.
you're right. And there always will be those types of arguments. You can always go back and forth. So this is why this is just fun topics. I'd love to know everyone else's thoughts on who do they think the worst Super Bowl MVP in the past 10 years has been. You know, it's not that obviously they were bad. It's just who was better. Who was the best though now? Who do you think has been the best one in the past 10 years?
The best one in the past 10 years.
Yeah.
I mean, I think it's hard to argue against Von Miller, unfortunately. Um, I think it's hard to argue against Cooper Kupp with what he did, considering he won the Triple Crown and was
Mm-hmm.
Super Bowl MVP. I mean, that's a rarity. You have the Triple Crown and the MVP of the
Mm-hmm.
Super Bowl, and you win the Super Bowl. I mean, that's pretty incredible. I mean, you can't ignore Malcolm Smith either, Seattle linebacker who had his touchdown, fumble recovery, 10 tackles. I mean, if I'm being honest, let's be honest here for a second. The vast majority of these awards go to quarterbacks. So the ones that stand out to me as most impressive are the ones that are not quarterbacks, quite simply because they're never picked. But yeah,
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I remember watching that Broncos Panthers Super Bowl, and Von Miller was literally unstoppable.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm probably going to go with Von Miller if I'm being honest.
I don't blame you for that one. I think Von Miller might be up there for me too. I think anytime Tom Brady's though in there, I know it's like, oh, quarterback, like you said, but Tom Brady has proven time and time again that he is the master of the clutch. Obviously, he hasn't won it every time. Ask a Giants fan or an Eagles fan.
Or a
But
Colts fan.
but I think overall, I mean, you look at, how he played in the 2015 Super Bowl against Seattle. Yes, he was not the one to make the big game-winning interception like Malcolm Butler did, but Tom Brady down 10 in that fourth quarter against one of the best defenses to like ever play football, came back, made it happen like it was nothing, and no one was surprised. I mean, you got to look at games like that. You got to look at just how he carries himself. I know it's Tom Brady. He makes it like every other year. We all know that. And would anyone be surprised if he made it again in his last quote unquote year?
No.
No, no one would be surprised. But he plays
I
well in
mean,
these games. So
honorable mention Nick Foles. I mean, come on.
Nick Foles was the most impressive to me. Does that make sense? Like Von Miller is Von Miller. He's probably
But
going to
Nick
be in the Hall
Foles
of
was a
Fame, but
nobody.
mm-hmm.
He went out here and did the thing
Mm-hmm.
against Tom Brady, the greatest quarterback of all time.
Mm-hmm. I mean, Nick Foles pulled out all the stops to win that. So to be honest,
Catching the reception was the best one.
and it was so confident too. It was like a shove right to Tom Brady's face when he caught that because Tom Brady tried to catch a pass and that just did not work out. Um, but Nick Foles, just the confidence in that catch, I always think that's so great. But Nick Foles to me was definitely the most impressive. He may not be the best one of the past 10 years, but man, just seeing the way he played, he wasn't perfect. No one is, but man, for a guy like him who was coming off the bench not too long ago to show up in the biggest game of his life for a city that literally has never won a Super Bowl and win that Super Bowl and have a statue built in his name and just have an excellent game all around. I mean, I do have to look at one thing though. That Eagles team was loaded. I mean,
That's true.
Nelson Aguilar and Alshon Jeffrey that year together were monsters to defend, and they showed it in that game too. But Nick Foles put it to them where they could make it happen. So
Can't catch a ball unless someone throws it to you. So
So I mean, honestly, I kind of agree. Shout out to Nick Foles being, in my opinion, the most impressive one.
I
So yeah,
agree. It was very impressive. Gotta love when the Patriots lose to nobodies.
that was
That's the
actually
best.
it was actually, even though Patriots fans may hate this man, I feel like I'm gonna get a lot of Patriots hate today. I'm really not. I just told you Tom Brady, I think, deserves like all the ones he got, and I think he
Except the
plays
ones he didn't
amazing.
get. Wink.
Oh man, now you're gonna get the hate on it. But
Oh, I always do. I'm used to it.
it is what it is. But yeah, I think this will be interesting. I think this is something we need to revisit. Go through like, okay, these Super Bowl MVPs, all of this different stuff. I mean, it's fascinating, kind of what we what we hold, as what makes a player an MVP of a game. Most of the time you can kind of tell. Sometimes though you can't. So either way, I think it'll be a fun topic. Comment below what you guys think is who you think is the most overrated, worst Super Bowl MVP. I don't know. Whatever you want to comment,
In
let
the
us
last
know.
10 years.
Yeah, last 10 years, going from this year back to 2012.
Tell us who the best was too. We want to know.
Yes, who's the best, who's the worst? Please let us know. I think it'll be a lot of fun, a lot of great discussion. Keep it civil. Don't be 5-year-olds in the comments. Please don't.
If you can
But
be a civil 5-year-old, though.
props to you. I'm not. Shout out to our 5-year-old audience.
We see you.
We represent you. We understand you. But yeah, anyways, I think that's pretty much all we've got for today. So, Chelsea, you want to go ahead and lead us out today?
Of course. So thanks for listening, guys. Tune back next week for more content. In the meantime, follow us on Twitter at LaunchCodesFB and on Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, and YouTube at LaunchCodesFootball. I'm Chelsea.
And I'm Chris.
And we'll see you next week.
See ya.
Later.